All right, welcome back to the show. And yes, we're going to have in the studio the family business guy, Mr. John Broons. He's just come back from Chicago, so we've dragged him off the plane, said, come and tell us all about it. So don't go anywhere. John, welcome back to Australia.
Thanks, Mike. Good to be home.
Off to Chicago to the Family Firm Institute. Huge conference there for family advisors from all over the world.
Yeah, FFI have a global conference every year, and it rotates from city to city. There's a group of three, and this year it happened to be in Chicago, so it was a nice place to visit. A little bit cold. I think daytime temperature was about 36 degrees Fahrenheit. It was a little bit cool for me.
And when you were saying when you go there, and I suppose the same for every business owner that goes to conferences, but you're saying some of the seminars that are being run and some of the talks being given, just packed with information. And they've been doing surveys of companies around the world that, family businesses around the world are expecting growth in their markets, in their countries. The confidence is up. 8% growth they're averaging.
Yeah, so the conferences were fantastic, or the conference sessions were fantastic.
Yeah.
A number of the sessions you just couldn't get in because they were over full.
Wow.
And sometimes they're scheduled for an hour and a half, and they kept going because they were so involved and so interesting. But a number of the businesses that were being in one particular session, some ultra large families who are in business were interviewed, and some of the information came out about their growth, what their potential for growth is, what their expectations for growth are. And these are huge companies, 10,000 plus employees.
Wow.
$3.5 billion worth of trade, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they're not small businesses. That's just one example of one particular topic where we were talking.
Wow. And you were saying, because there were so many different little mini conferences going on in these different seminars and these talks, and we're going to go through them in the coming weeks. But you were talking about one, we've talked about the subject before, and it was conflict. And they said, conflict can be positive.
Yes. And
they broke it into 3 areas, and if I remember rightly, it was task, process, relationships. Yep. And they said, individually, when conflict happens in those areas, they're probably not too bad, but when the 3 happen together, well, then...
It's more the task stuff, which is strategy, perspective.
Like goal-setting stuff.
Goal-setting stuff.
Yep.
If that happens, conflict about that, that's easy to solve if there's nothing else going on. The process stuff about how we do things, we can resolve that reasonably quickly if nothing else is happening. Okay?
Yeah,
but when you get to the relationship stuff, all this relational issues, once people bring in all of their history, all of their background, you don't know what it is that will be a trigger to start some sort of heated conversation that can turn into negative conflict.
Is that why when you go into family businesses yourself and you just don't deal with, say, just the actual head of the household or maybe just 2 or 3 key members, you like to know about everyone? And I think you phrase it that people bring with them their history into the business, and understanding that is really, really important. So then these conflicts happen, the conflicts don't turn negative, they do turn positive, like this seminar was talking about.
Ideally, we don't have the emotion in the conversation.
We can just walk in and just say, well...
So if we can remove that emotional stuff, then we can deal with facts, and then it's either yes or no. When we get to individual's perspective, then it becomes a very hard to grab a hold of conversation, because each person has their own desires. Although they may be similar, they're not exactly the same. So how do we resolve those issues? Unless we have some sort of resolution agreement before we go into the conversation, how are we going to resolve this conversation? How are we going to resolve the conflict if we do come to conflict? Either one of us, it can be perceived as a win, right? I might win, you might lose. When in fact, it's not necessarily about winning and losing. It's how do we both move together along the journey and understand that we are different, balancing that such that we can actually come to an agreement on either the process or the task, okay, but to keep our relationship together.
Yeah. When because as you say, it is a family that's in business, they're in business together, so the personalities come on board. And we say, well, tasks, the goals, they start to get fairly simplistic. But when the process comes along, we've got the younger generation stepping in, so they bring their slant on it, but then you've got the older generation, and look, some of them are tech savvy, but there's people always want to do new things, and I think they can bring technologies in. Do you find the more difficult conflicts come in as the younger generations come in and want to remold the company into newer directions? What are tougher to deal with?
Well, sometimes they might come in with their way of doing things because they've been to university or they've learnt something that's different that may challenge the actual operational structure of the business. But there are other times when people come in and they're aligned with the vision of the business. If they're not aligned with the vision and they haven't had a cultural background explanation so that they know where the business started, then it becomes opinions start to get involved, and how do we get everybody onto the same page, which is then when you need to have the conversations as individuals as well as in the group.
So this seminar that you went to, or this particular talk that we're giving, and it breaks them into three, and said individually they're quite easy to manage. Obviously, when you get to
The relationship one is not the easy one.
I knew he was going to pick me up on that one. But your other two, do you as a family business consultant try to segregate then those two from the relationship one, or is it just you have to be across the board on all of them?
You have to be able to work with, if you're playing with all three at the same time, ideally you need to educate those family members involved so that they can understand why they're arguing.
Yes.
So that we can actually unpack the situation to give them some clarity and the tools to be able to work forward together.
Here's the question. I know we're going to go to a break, but here's the question for you. Do you believe that conflict can actually be positive in a family business?
Yeah. Conflict, to me, means that I just have two differing opinions.
Oh. And I suppose you say that gives you opportunity.
Well, there is the opportunity. How do we pick the right decision for that group, that family, those individuals, so that we can move forward? The conflict just puts everything on hold until we resolve it. Once we resolve it, we have some fresh clarity and we can move again. Do you get enjoyment out of that when they get that clarity and it's like, oh, look at that, we've just stepped forward so much? And how does you as an outsider, how do you get a handle on the conflict and control the conflict so it doesn't become destructive, I suppose is what I'm asking? It's a challenge. It's really a challenge. The family, each individual in the family needs to have trust in the advisor.
Right.
And the advisor needs to be careful not to bring in his or her baggage into the argument. Okay?
Yeah.
And we need to be able to help those that don't see what other family members might see, because they might be angry or frustrated. And when you're in that state, you're not open at all to any other ideas. So it becomes very much immediate, very much real-time situational, when some family members can't see the issues at hand. So even if I can see the issue, and maybe one or two of the other family members can see the issue, until everybody can be on the same page, it's hard to move forward.
Right. All on the same page, so you can all move forward. Conflict can be positive in your family business. We'll take a break and we'll come back with more from John Broons, the family business guy. Find out what else has been going on over there in Chicago. We'll be back real soon.